Look at the world map. Throughout the ages, you'll see a ruthless law. Empires that once devoured entire continents were eventually crushed into dust by history. The British Empire once ruled nearly a quarter of the earth, where the sun never set. But today, it is merely a secluded island nation. The Mongols once brought Eurasia to its knees under their hooves, but after just a few generations, it shattered into disjointed fragments and faded away. From mighty Persia to great Rome, they all followed the same script. When the military hardware was destroyed, the internal core system collapsed forever. But there is a paradox in the East. An entity that is not just a nation, but a civilization state. For 5,000 years, China has endured dozens of bloody civil wars and hundreds of dynastic name changes. Yet after every collapse, instead of disintegrating like Europe, this entity was reborn stronger, expanding larger after each cycle. This longevity was not a favor from destiny. It was built upon rock-solid foundations, pre-shaped from the start. Over 2,300 years ago, a ruthless and genius lead architect emerged. Instead of merely conquering land, he established an imperial OS, a profound source code capable of self-correction, reshaping mindsets, and binding billions of people into a single, unified entity. Welcome to Paradigm Zero. Today, we decode the imperial OS that caused China to fall many times, but never truly disappear. Part 1. The Old Paradigm, the Frozen System. To understand the shock wave of this operating system, we must look at the dead-end reality prior to 221 BC, the era of the Great Chaos. As the old order collapsed, China was fragmented into hundreds of small pieces, then condensed into the 7 warring states, 7 superpowers continuously tearing each other apart in an endless loop of war. But the fragmentation wasn't only territorial. The fatal flaw at the time was incompatibility. Imagine 7 nations as 7 operating systems, running on completely different protocols. Each place used its own currency, its own unit of measurement, and its own distinct written languages. A merchant traveling from Qi to Chu was like you trying to force a lightning cable into a USB-C port, everything through an error. This technical gridlock crippled production capacity, and information was corrupted. Every nation believed its cultural format was the ultimate standard. And as a result, resources were burned to ashes for meaningless wars. This was a system on the verge of a crash. China at that time was like a frozen computer, stuck in a pile of junk data. It needed a total hard reset. Part 2. The zero moment, the exact moment reality shifted. In 221 BC, Qin Shi Huang understood a truth that tech valleys would only realize thousands of years later. Capturing land is merely owning the hardware. Operating it requires the software. Along with Prime Minister Li Si, the empire's first CTO, he launched an operating system upgrade across 3 core layers. 1. Data revolution. Li Si eliminated all local font variants causing information noise. He forced the entire continent to use a single code, the small seal script. This was the establishment of the world's first unified data format. From then on, a command issued from the capital server was understood with a single meaning. All data lag was eliminated. The empire's font was absolutely synchronized. 2. Hardware synchronization. How do you coordinate millions of soldiers across an area the size of Europe without network congestion? The secret lay in insane hardware synchronization. Qin Shi Huang operated an ancient wooden rail system, a feat ahead of its time. He decreed, Exa Dong Quai, All chariot axles must be exactly 6 feet long. Think of the axle as the interface, and the rail groove as the infrastructure. When all devices are 100% compatible, China becomes a high-speed logistics conveyor belt. To prevent value lag, he launched the Sole Payment Protocol, the Banliang coin. Meanwhile, to protect data integrity, he standardized the entire system of weights and measures. From a grain of rice to a piece of iron, everything used a common input format. Zero error. The center held absolute, precise data from every corner. 3. Centralized OS. Finally, the ultimate power. Hard reset. He wiped out the risky, decentralized, feudal system. Instead, he divided the country into 36 commanderies. Officials were no longer hereditary lords. They were mere nodes, appointed by the center, and could be uninstalled at any moment. Power was absolutely concentrated in the central server, the emperor. Every decision radiated from the central processor, and all local data flowed back here for processing. Part 3. The Resonance. The Han Dynasty's UI update. The Qin's operating system, version 1.0, was a miracle, but it had a fatal flaw. It consumed too much of society's RAM. Massive background processes depleted resources. The system overheated. After just 15 years, the Qin shattered in a total system crash. But when the Han Dynasty rebooted the server, they were brilliant. They didn't delete the Qin source code. They simply provided a friendlier user interface. This patch was called Outer Confucianism, Inner Legalism. Externally, the system was coded in benevolent Confucianism to soothe the masses, optimizing the user experience. But deep inside, the kernel layer, it still operated on the cold, legalist core to maintain absolute order. You feel free, but you are actually in a strictly controlled sandbox. To ensure the system never faced system decay, they opened a genius API, the Imperial Examination System. This API allowed every intellectual component from the commoners to be plugged directly into the Empire's motherboard, instead of leaving those minds idle to create rebel viruses. They turned citizens into developers, protecting the system. The Empire was continuously upgraded. Qin Shi Huang wrote the source code. The Han commercialized it. By constantly patching and reinforcing itself, this operating system ran stably for over 2,000 years of history. Part 4. Legalism 2.0 and the future. Stepping into the 21st century. This machine hasn't aged. It merely upgraded to the cyberspace. We are witnessing the rise of Legalism 2.0. Digital legalism. The 2,000-year legacy of the Qin has now been completely digitized and uploaded to the cloud. The social credit system is the perfect 4.0 update of the ancient surveillance network. Instead of relying on the eyes and ears of officials, hundreds of millions of AI cameras and big data algorithms are now scanning continuously in real time. 0 blind spots. 1. Absolute scalability. How does China lay tens of thousands of miles of high-speed rail or roll out 5G networks at lightning speed? Because they operate as a single super entity. When the central server hits update, 1.4 billion nodes simultaneously execute the same protocol. 0 latency, 0 debate. 2. Predictive governance. The system strives to eliminate all noise, but instead of waiting for an error, AI analyzes data to isolate and neutralize threats before they trigger. The absolute stability the Qin once craved is now a digital reality. 3. Massive throughput. In times of crisis, the system channels the entire bandwidth into a single target. This hypermobilization creates an immense pressure that decentralized systems struggle to keep up with. China is not immortal because of stone walls. Those walls can crumble. China is immortal because of a governance operating system that has been hard-coded deep into the DNA of an entire civilization. Lesson from the zero moment. The question is, in a world constantly shifting towards freedom and democracy, how will this ancient source code adapt? Can a system that prioritizes absolute synchronization survive in the long run? Or will it need variables of freedom to avoid shattering under its own rigidity? Leave a like if this analysis just synced with your frequency. And don't forget to let me know in the comments, do you choose steel or silk? Hit subscribe right now, because the secrets in part 2 will be much heavier than this. I am Paradigm Zero. See you next time.